This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us. It is Tuesday, January 7th. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, a new warning from the U.S. government about how Iran may strike American interests in the Middle East. We're going to take a look at what could be ahead in the showdown between the two countries and how Israel is reacting. Senate Republicans moving to block demands from House Democrats on President Trump's impeachment. We're going to take a look at the Republicans' move. New fears over those wildfires in Australia concern some of them may merge, creating a mega blaze. And she once weighed 325 pounds before she lost a remarkable amount of weight by changing what she ate, and why she says others can do it as well. All those stories and much more ahead in this edition of CBN NewsWatch. We begin this half hour with a warning from the U.S. government Iran could take action against the U.S. in key waterways in the Middle East. It is just the latest potential escalation of the tensions in the region. Iran's three-day mourning period for General Qasem Soleimani ends today. But as Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, both sides are preparing for the next stage of an historic and potentially dangerous confrontation.
After days of mass ceremonies, mourners buried the remains of Qasem Soleimani. The crowds were so large at one ceremony that 35 died in a stampede. In a rare departure, Iran's supreme leader Khomeini told Iran's military leaders that the revenge attacks must be direct, proportional, and carried out by Iranian forces themselves. The question remains how and when Iran will carry out those vows of retaliation. Iran's head of security listed 13 specific targets, including U.S. bases.
This is a regime that has a pattern of conducting attacks against American interests all over the world. And I would even say that the United States itself, the homeland, is at risk.
To defend against those attacks, the Department of Defense is sending more troops and deploying B-52 bombers to the Middle East to strengthen defenses at U.S. bases. Iran says it also might hit U.S. targets, including President Trump's personal properties. They tweeted a list of those properties and put an $80 million bounty on the president. On Capitol Hill, Democrat Senator Tim Kaine introduced a war powers resolution to limit President Trump's military actions against Iran.
In our country, it was supposed to be that we wouldn't send people into harm's way unless there was a political consensus represented by a congressional vote that war was in the national interest. And that's what I'm trying to force Congress to grapple with.
Presidential Counselor Kellyanne Conway said the strike was legal and necessary.
He's the commander-in-chief, and he did what a responsible, strong, not weak, commander-in-chief does when faced with the opportunity to take out one of the, if not the world's most wanted terrorists.
A vote on the War Powers Resolution is expected on Wednesday, along with a full briefing for the House and Senate. Following the Iraqi parliament's vote to expel U.S. forces, a letter circulated that stated U.S. troops would be leaving. But later Defense Secretary Mark Esper denied that report. Iranian board Ali Reza Nadar said some Iraqis fear a pullout of U.S. troops.
I don't necessarily think that it's a given the U.S. will depart Iraq. I think a lot of Iraqi politicians and much of the public is opposed to that because they're afraid of Iranian hegemony, basically.
And Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem. So, Chris, how has Israel's prime minister instructed his ministers on responding to the killing of Soleimani, and why?
Well, right now, Ephraim, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has really told his ministers, don't talk about it and just stay out of it. He doesn't want to leave the impression that Israel has any part of this U.S. operation, and they want to just remain sort of on the sidelines with the U.S. And Iran. Right now, they realize Iran has Israel on its sights anyway, but they want to exaggerate the threat to Israel.
The threats coming out of Iran are explosive, but what is the typical Israeli reaction to the threats coming out of Iran?
Well, Ephraim, I talked to a friend of mine just a little while ago, and I think his sense is that the West is really cowering and getting afraid of all this rhetoric coming out of Iran. And his advice was, fear not. don't cower in the midst of this rhetoric, because it's usually over the top. It's even more accelerated right now because of the killing of General Qasem Soleimani. But he said, don't fear, because Iran knows that it really can't afford an all-out war against the United States, and they have to calculate how much they can do against the United States, lest risk the whole empire, the Iranian empire, falling.
The Iraqi parliament voted to expel U.S. troops. Tell us more about that vote and how this could affect the Kurds in Iraq.
Well, Efren, that's a very fascinating scenario right now. When you look at the Iraqi parliament vote, you have to realize it was symbolic, it was non-binding. The Sunni Arabs were not there, and the Kurds were not there. So really, the Shiite members of the Iranian parliament, the Iraqi parliament, that is, they were favoring Iran anyway. And you also have to realize that this might be favorable for the Kurds. They're going to say that perhaps if the Iraqi government or parliament is going to say the U.S. troops need to leave, well, we want them to stay, because the Kurds have been generally favorable towards the United States. And also, Senator Marco Rubio tweeted just a couple of days ago that maybe this is the time for Kurdish independence. And so this could be one geopolitical fallout of this confrontation between Iran and the United States. And for those that really favor a Kurdish independent state, this really could be the time for that. So we'll see what happens.
Indeed. Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, thank you so much for your report. I want to turn now to things in Washington. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has the votes to stop Democratic demands to require additional witnesses to testify at the beginning of President Trump's impeachment trial. That is according to The Hill. The moderate senators Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska backed McConnell Monday night. The Senate Majority Leader says the Senate should follow the precedent of the 1999 Clinton impeachment trial. That means waiting until later in the process to decide whether or not to call additional witnesses. Meanwhile, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi still has not delivered the articles of impeachment to the Senate. Sunday, Senator Lindsey Graham told Fox News the Republican-controlled Senate should change the rules to override Pelosi.
Well, we're not going to let Nancy Pelosi use the rules of the Senate to her advantage. This is dangerous for the presidency as an institution.
The battle over witnesses continues as former National Security Advisor John Bolton says he will testify if he is subpoenaed. In Australia, growing concerns, 3 of the wildfires in the states of New South Wales and Victoria could merge, creating a mega blaze. Exhausted firefighters have gotten a break from cooler weather, but the mega blaze could happen when the temperature heats up later in the week. The damage estimates are already starting to come in as the death toll rises.
26 lives have already been lost. We have unaccounted for people across Australia. We have over 1,800 homes have been destroyed.
Here in 1953, we moved to the area in 1951. The house was built in 1953, and we haven't ever seen a bushfire like this before, not since we've been here.
So far, the fires have killed an estimated 500 million animals, and Australia's wildfire season is far from over. It usually lasts through March. Coming up, Christians are asking questions about a student art project that shows, among other things, a desecrated Bible. We're going to find out what's happening when we come back.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
Yes.
Lord, into public schools.
The Prayer Link, Tuesday nights at 6:30.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Protect your sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
Get the top political news and analysis from Washington on Faith Nation, tonight at 6 Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel.
Check out the CBN News Daily Rundown podcast each weekday with me, Caitlin Burke. Click on the show tab at cbnnews.com where you can listen and subscribe.
A university promoting the display of a student art project that shows a desecrated Bible, among other things, has Christians asking why. I spoke with conservative radio commentator Todd Starnes for more on this story. Todd, you have a story on your website about an art display at a university with a desecrated Bible and satanic images. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this happened at the University of Southern Maine. There was an assignment in an art class. The students had to literally take a book and turn that book into a piece of art. And so an atheist student decided to take the Holy Bible, and he actually ripped pages out of the Bible, painted them to look like flames from the lake of fire. And then he took portraits and paintings of Christ, and in place of the face of Jesus, he placed a satanic image. One of the more jarring pictures we have on the website, you can actually see the nativity scene with Mary cradling the Christ child, and there is an evil satanic face on the Christ child. The reason this has caused so much controversy, it turns out that a local Church of Christ actually rents the facility at the university where this display is located. And so you might imagine the surprise of church members when they came in and they discovered this desecrated Bible. But here's the big issue. The school, the university, is defending the desecration of the Holy Bible. They say it's all part of freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and that the student is well within his rights to not only create this display, but the university is within its rights to display the artwork.
Do you think this would be allowed if it were any other religion or religious symbol? They'd be getting the same response?
Well, I think we need to understand that here in the United States of America, only Christians and Jews are allowed to be attacked for their religious beliefs. Muslims are off limits. So I think it's highly improbable that you would see a university like the University of Southern Maine approve of a desecrated Quran, or, for example, for a student to take pictures of the Prophet Muhammad and place a satanic image on those kinds of things. I don't think the university would be hollering about free speech and freedom of expression if that were the case.
Are Christians at the school or in the area speaking out against this?
Well, there has been a lot of outrage in the Christian community over this. Again, the issue here is not the student creating the artwork. The student has every right to make whatever he wants to make. The issue is, does the university, which is paid for by tax dollars, does it have a responsibility to display this artwork? That seems to be the big question here. And a lot of people are very upset. A lot of taxpayers, Christian taxpayers, are very upset. Their money is being used to promote an art display that desecrates the Holy Bible.
What are your thoughts on how Christians should respond to things like this?
There's only one way to send a message to universities like the University of Southern Maine and any other school that attacks Jewish or Christian students, and that's money. So the issue here is not protesting and having marches. I really don't think those work. But what does work? donors who call that university and say, you know what, not a single penny until you take down that desecrated art display. That's really how we're going to facilitate change here. Donors to the university, sponsors, businesses in the community, telling the university, we're not going to send you a single penny until you stop attacking people of faith.
Todd Starnes, thank you so much for bringing us this story.
Thanks.
Still ahead, she weighed 325 pounds and even tried surgery to lose weight, but that did not work. Then she changed what she was eating, and that did the trick. Now she shows people how they can lose weight as well. We'll hear her story right after this.
Come home to the sounds of Southern Gospel from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites like the Gaithers, the Crab Family, and bluegrass sounds like Mountain Faith. So make yourself at home with the all-new CBN Southern Gospel, now available at cbnradio.com.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
Prophecy thousands of years old.
We were called to be a light to the world.
Being fulfilled today. Discover how. Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life. Just call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religions he has, which color he is. This is what I'm doing.
See how the people of Israel are fulfilling prophecy.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
By sharing their knowledge.
In Africa, in Asia, in South America, in East Europe.
And their love.
This is how we work. This is us.
Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
Molly Carmel once weighed 325 pounds. Then she ended the abusive relationship with something she was eating that caused her to be morbidly obese. What was it? And why is this widespread ingredient in our food being blamed for a killer epidemic sweeping across America? Health reporter Lori Johnson has the answers.
Like millions of Americans, Molly Carmel spent years trying different diets without ever seeing true success. At one point, she tipped the scale at 325 pounds.
I had to get into the shower sideways. You know, I stopped wearing underwear completely because back in those days, I didn't know where to buy underwear that would fit me. Like I stopped wearing shoes that tied because I couldn't tie my shoes, and it was as dark, and I couldn't stop eating.
In an act of desperation, Molly underwent bariatric surgery, but even that didn't stick.
The only thing worse than being morbidly obese is gaining weight back after being morbidly obese.
Life completely changed for Molly as she read studies on mice addicted to sugar. She learned consuming the sugar releases dopamine into the brain and how that feel-good chemical triggers memory, desire, and behavior. The research really clicked when Molly saw how giving into cravings meant it would take even more sugar to achieve the same level of pleasure.
Reading research that really it described me. I was like, oh.
Knowing processed flour affects the body just like sugar, Molly determined many of her diets failed because they allowed some flour and sugar consumption.
You know, they are big into moderation, which I think is I think it's impossible for so many of us. Let me tell you something. If I could moderate, that's what I would do.
For the first time in her life, she decided to give up sugar and flour for 3 days.
And when I started to have the detox, I was like, uh-oh.
But she pushed through.
I decided to continue on for like 3 more days.
Okay.
About day 57, I thought, I can do this.
She lost the weight and kept it off.
I mean, I haven't had sugar or flour in 10 years.
Now Molly helps others at her Manhattan weight loss clinic and in her book, Breaking Up with Sugar, in which she compares the addiction to a bad relationship.
I mean, think about an abuser. It's like, oh, you think you can get on without me, huh? You're a nothing. You're a nobody, right? And if you're an outside perspective, if you're watching that movie, you're like, get out of there, girl. You're fine. You're amazing.
Ditching sugar and flour involves the big ticket items like cake and cookies, but also lots of processed foods you might not expect.
Sugar is a tricky, tricky, tricky little abuser because it really is everywhere. I gave up ketchup. I gave up teriyaki sauce. I gave up a lot of salad dressings. I had to start to read ingredients.
If sugar or one of its many aliases is in one of the first 4 ingredients, just say no. Molly says after a while, it becomes easier.
I travel and I go out to dinner and I order in and I live a big, abundant life.
The hardest part is enduring the headaches, depression, and other withdrawal effects that can last for days or weeks.
It's a real thing, and it passes. You want to know the way it passes, though? So if we don't go back to the sugar.
So while not everyone feels controlled by sugar, Molly Carmel believes many do.
I think there's a part of our country that is so deeply giving up on themselves and is so deeply hopeless.
And says if she can kick the habit, anyone can. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
And you can see the full interview with Molly Carmel and find out more about breaking up with sugar on healthy living on the CBN News Channel tonight at 9:30 Eastern. Coming up, she's 100 years young and she is an expert on tea. And she tells us what it has in common with the gospel. We're going to hear from author Dolly Yates when we come back.
Too often we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5, Wednesday night at 9:30.
Tikkun Olam.
This is our nature as a country.
To make the world a better place.
Literally, we felt the earth shaking.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents To Life, how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
This film needs to be seen by everyone.
I was in tears.
Now you can own the inspiring documentary To Life on DVD.
There is blood on our hands if we know and we walk away.
I'm so grateful that this film was made.
To Life can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
We know that every minute counts to save life.
It'll bless Israel, but it'll also bless all the friends of Israel.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are making the world a better place. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com to get your copy today.
Region's first ROTC graduate student.
Earl Grey, chai, chamomile. Author Dolly Yates has spent years studying the history of tea. Amber Strong sat down with a centenarian to learn the keys to a proper cup of tea and a soul-quenching walk with God.
Bought it not too fast, but immediately slow like that.
Dolly Yates says some of her best memories started just like this one.
And let it stand for approximately 3 to 4 minutes.
Some of my most enjoyable moments have been when I've made afternoon tea for my great-grandchildren and I've let them put my fancy hats on.
A good laugh over a proper cup of tea.
At 100 years old, Dolly Yates says she's had a lot of good moments. The England native also says there's a lot you can learn from a good cup of tea.
The first time for everything.
Yes.
Well done, Amber.
In fact, she's written the book on it.
So what is the key to a, as you call it in the book, a PET, a perfect English tea?
Well, a perfect English tea is, I would say, pretty much like we're doing it right now. The first thing which we need to remember is to aim for a game of what you call ambience. And by that I mean have a wonderful feeling of well-being.
It's chock full of historical nuggets.
Tea could only come to England in exceedingly small quantities at first because of the transport and things like that. So that's what made it so pricey. The Princess of Portugal, and she brought for her diary a chest of tea. And from modern days, I think, whoa, what an insult. But that was not an insult. It might as well have been a chest full of diamonds.
The lessons here go beyond history. Yates says if you look deep enough, you can find a bit of godly truth in each cup.
With the big invention of the steam-powered boats, that just changed everything.
She says because tea, much like the gospel, could not be stopped.
Jesus gave one commandment when he left the disciples: go ye into all the world and preach the gospel. And as I recall, that gospel spread.
The centenarian has learned a lot over the years, such as how to adapt. In her 60s, Yates moved to the United States following the death of her husband. By the time she turned 90, she'd written 3 books. In her research, she found one common theme. Tea and the gospel are available for all, from the Queen's Garden to coal mines.
There's nothing like God. There's God alone can satisfy the deep, deep hunger in the heart of man. It doesn't matter whether the highest or the lowest. I still, you still, we all still need God in our heart and lives.
Yeah. That's her message, 100 years young and pouring steamy cups of knowledge to all lucky enough to hear it. Amber Strong, CBN News, Washington.
She looks amazing. Time now for your Tuesday Tweetable. It's a message meant to encourage you and to move you to share it with those in your circles of influence. And this is actually a tweet from Atlanta pastor Jamal Bryant. Prepare a table in the presence of my enemies. Starve my fears. Feed my faith. Update the menu of my opportunities and pour out a blessing. With that word, I encourage you to make today a terrific Tuesday and be sure to have a wonderful rest of the week. That will do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel at any time. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us. That address is newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Certainly hope you'll join us again right here next time. We'll see you right back here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye and God bless.